I came across a Yiddish folk saying this week that I'd never heard before. Blessed are the hands that take for themselves. I think this is worth talking about. Shalom, my friends. Yes, let's talk about this Yiddish proverb. First of all, for those who might be unfamiliar, Yiddish is a language spoken by Jews from Central and Eastern Europe, and it's made up of a combination of primarily German and Hebrew words. What do you think of this Yiddish proverb? Is it telling us that we should be selfish and worry only about ourselves?
No.
I don't think so either. But if that is not the meaning of the proverb, then what does it mean? I think that this teaching is telling us that sometimes in life it is important to be proactive. And I think that is true, or I would not be talking about it now. I don't think that acknowledging that there are situations in life in which we must act does not imply a lack of faith in God. On the contrary, I think there are times when God Himself wants us to be proactive and not wait passively for God to intervene in our lives. You might have heard the classic Jewish joke on this very topic. If you're Jewish, you've definitely heard it. It's the one about the terrible flood and a very religious Jewish guy is stranded on the roof of his house. A rowboat comes along to rescue him, but he refuses to get in. He says, "I trust in God and God will save me." A little while later, a canoe came along and the people in the canoe offered him help. But again, he insists, "I trust in God and God will save me." And a while after that, a rescue helicopter lowered a ladder to him so he could climb aboard. But again he refused, saying, "I trust in God and God will save me." Not long after that, the poor fellow drowned. When he stood before God in heaven above, he was a little bit angry. He told God that he had been a religious person his entire life, trusting and believing in God, but when he really needed divine intervention, where was God? And God answered him, "Where was I? I sent you a boat, a canoe, I sent you a helicopter. What more do you want?" This little joke, and I think our Yiddish saying, are telling us the same thing. And indeed, we have an English expression that I think carries the same message, which is, God helps those who help themselves. Think about it. If we are in a situation calling for action, but we are unwilling to act on our own behalf, why should anyone else, even God, be proactive when we ourselves are not? As I read from an anonymous source, I wish I know who said this, it is only when we are willing to help ourselves that others will be willing to help us as well. I think there's wisdom in that. It's part of the great sage Hillel's three-part teaching. The first part of which says, "If I am not for myself, who will be for me?" But the second part goes hand in hand with the first part. If I am only for myself, what am I? And I believe this is the spirit in which our Yiddish saying was created. No, we are not supposed to be selfish and worry only about ourselves. But taking care of ourselves is a part of living an adult life. The challenge is finding the strength to act when you're feeling powerless. So remember, there's a difference between feeling powerless and actually being powerless. Of course, there are times in life when circumstances are not within our control. That's true. But let's be careful not to assume too quickly that that's the case. A situation may well feel that way, but how do you know you can't affect it at all? You won't really know until you try. And when you try, you just might surprise yourself. Have you ever been in a situation in which you felt helpless, but when you tried to influence things and were successful, you were surprised? I'd love to read your story in the comments box below the video. Also below the video is the description box. And there I will leave a link to patreon.com. Patreon is a way to support the efforts of this channel to address the major issues of life from a Judeo-Christian perspective. Being a patron helps us with a donation of as little as $3 a month. A big thank you to all of our patrons. Finally, let me put the idea of this video into practice. I want the Rabbi study to reach 1,000 subscribers. So rather than simply waiting passively for people to subscribe, I'm going to be proactive. I'm going to ask you for a subscription, which comes at no cost to you at all. I'm assuming you're watching me on YouTube. And if you are, you can subscribe by clicking on my face right over here, or watch another video by clicking on its icon right over there. As ever, until next time, Shabbat Shalom.